is Wednesday, December 18th, and welcome to episode 121. I hope you had a nice day. I hope you're ready to relax and enjoy yet another episode where, as I mentioned last time, I'm going to be talking about how do you know when you're ready to retire? 3 questions to ask yourself. But first, what did you think of my observation episode yesterday? And part 2 is tomorrow. I hope you're enjoying that, listening to me just ramble, random thoughts to relax to. You know, sometimes I think about ASMR and I watch other channels and, you know, they're really not talking about anything significant. So that takes the pressure off of me a little bit because I always feel like I have to wow you with information, and yet that's not what this is all about. It's about relaxing, but getting comfortable with money. Yeah, I need to talk about that more. I think I just had a revelation that unlike other financial channels, they're always making it so polished it has to be perfect and lots of editing and graphics, and you know, don't you get tired of all of that sometimes? Don't you just want to relax and listen to somebody talk about money? Maybe mistakes they've made, things that are really good that have happened, because I will say a lot of good has happened for me over the past 20 years as it relates to money. And as you'll learn, and as you probably know, it's all about you. It's about your commitment to certain behaviors. And yes, listen, I'm not going to fool you. You have to have an income. You're not going to get wealthy without an income. But you will get wealthy if you take that income and you put it to where it needs to go. Remember, what do I always say? Who can remember what is the primary reason for your income today? Most people think that the primary reason for their income is to spend for today. Nope. The primary reason for your income today is to save it for tomorrow, because the money you save today becomes so much more tomorrow. You know, I don't know if I shared this with you yet, but remember on some previous episodes I had shared with you that my net worth was increasing about $125,000 a year for 12 years. Now, that's with me putting a lot of money in there, remember? And that's an average. But then I think I also shared with you that now that I have 1.4 in investments. Now remember, I have cash reserves and I've got equity in my home, which is 1.7. But just considering the 1.4, that money is going to earn interest, dividends, and unrealized gains of about $90,000 a year. Well, I was only making $120 a year, so it's almost like the engine you create replaces your job if you create the engine to begin with. If you don't create an engine, it creates nothing. Okay, that makes no sense. But you get what I mean. It's amazing how that works. Anyway, oh yeah, triggers of the week. These spheres, remember, I love these. I think they make a good trigger, don't you? Trigger. that I went to that I talked about on Monday, we were sitting around at our tables and we had to do these tasks, which I can't remember the name of the game, but you read what's on a card and you have to accept the challenge. One of which was to take these Dixie cups with these ping pong balls and try to throw them in the air and catch them in the other cup. You have to do it 3 times. And of course, I did it as well as other people on my team. We felt like children. But it was fun. It was a very bonding experience. I think people should also bond with their money, don't you? I'll have to create an episode on how to bond with your money. Yeah. Let me think about that. That might be coming up in a future episode. I also like this too. I wonder if that's going to be too loud. I don't know. Relax, you're just getting older. And hopefully wealthier. Yeah. You know, some people I saw at that annual event this past week, the ones that may have shied away and not really asked me too many questions. Not that they have to ask questions, don't get me wrong, but you know, I can almost pinpoint some people that I know on a casual basis, and you may know people as well at work or maybe in your neighborhood or wherever, where you may feel that, you know what, I bet that person's not really doing that great with money. They look great. They've got the expensive cars and the nice homes and all, and yet when the topic comes to retirement, especially as you get older, people that shy away from that topic are usually the ones that don't feel so good about their situation, and that's not, I mean, it's to be admired, I should say. I just wish that they would wake up and maybe be a little bit more honest with themselves, especially, so that they could change their situation. I don't know. I remember somebody that I knew when I was a lot younger, and she said to me once, she said, Evan, I will always have a car payment, because I was like on this kick of paying off my car. And she said, why bother? I'm just always going to have a car payment. And that sentence resonated with me and stuck with me all these years. I'll never forget. That's a self-fulfilling prophecy, isn't it? To say to yourself, I will never be able to pay off a car. I will always have a car payment. That's a self-fulfilling prophecy. That is going to happen for her because she said it and she does not believe that she has the capacity to pay off a car. Remember, for those of you that have been with me, I have lots of episodes about my past. I remember sharing with you the first car that I paid off was my Mazda Miata. I never felt so powerful than going into the credit union, handing them that final check of a few $1,000s or whatever it was, and I paid it off. I was like, wow, I cannot believe it. And I thought about that girl. I was like, wow, I actually did that. And then years later in 2019, I paid off this condo, and I was like, wow, I still owed $30,000 on it. And I sent that last 30 grand, knowing that I could have kept it because it was a very low interest rate, but I wanted that wow feeling of I actually accomplished it. Sometimes money is not, sometimes you do things with money that's not perhaps the smartest thing to do, and yet it is smart because I felt so proud of myself and accomplished. Yes, could I have stretched that mortgage out longer? $30,000 in a savings account or even in the stock market and made more money? Absolutely. But how much would that $30,000 would have gained in the past 5 years? Right? You have to kind of weigh the pros and the cons. And I wanted that wow feeling, and so that's what I did. So anyway, I just went off on a total tangent. Let me get back on track. What was I going to talk about in this episode? Does anybody remember? Oh yeah. How you know when you're ready to retire. 3 questions. 1, 2, 3 to ask yourself. And I'm going to tie this to a dinner I had with some friends the other night. We got together. It was kind of like a retirement dinner for me because a friend of mine was visiting. And so that's what it kind of turned out to be, which was nice. They bought my dinner. That was very sweet. And of course the topic turned to retirement. And my friends, you know, some of which have retired, some have not, we started talking about, you know, how do you really know when you're ready? Because a friend of mine, he's a little bit older, he's like 70, I'm 59. He said, make sure you're ready. And I said, listen, Michael, I am ready. Not the Michael that I tell you guys about. This is a different Michael. I said, Michael, I am so ready. I have been thinking about this since I was 40 years old. Now, with that being said, I'm sure I'll be sharing with you guys next year. Times when I'm bored, I'll probably ramble into this microphone a whole lot more to relax you because I won't have anything else to do. But I will share with you my thoughts because, yes, I do agree you have to have something to retire to. What is it for me? It's growing this channel. It's being more aware of titles and things. I think I shared with you in a previous episode where I could grow it even more than it is. I look at channels out there sometimes and I see 38,000 views on one video. I'm like, wow, that's amazing. I think the most I've had is 2,000. So I haven't really wanted to concentrate that much on those pieces of the puzzle because I have a full-time job. Well, next year now I can concentrate on that. I don't know if it'll work, but regardless, I will be here talking about money because you know I love doing this. It's not all about more and more subscribers. It's keeping the ones that I have, like you guys. So, but he did say, you know, Evan, make sure you really think about what you're going to do with your time. So that made me think about how do you know when you're really ready to retire and what are 3 questions to ask yourself. The first question I came up with and came about through our conversations. Look at me, I'm a mess. My watch is falling apart. I don't have my orange watch, I have my sports watch. Anyway, the first question to ask yourself, and by the way, this might be years into the future for you guys, but do you like or love your job is number 1. Do you like or love your job? So when we brought that up, I was honest with them and I'm honest with you guys. I said, you know what? I like my job. I fell into the training profession. I teach clients, instructor-led when I used to travel, and now virtually, up until, you know, I'm not doing it anymore. By the way, I've got one more class to teach, and it's on Thursday. It's only an hour. Tomorrow, by the time you watch this, that'll be my last class. But anyway, I like what I do. I went to school for communications, and so it does fall into that realm. And I have definitely enjoyed what I'm doing. Do I love it? No. You guys know I really wanted to do other things in my career, which I won't get into today. But I wanted it to be more creative, etc. And that didn't happen. Oh well. That's okay. Now, if I had a job where it was completely creative, like doing a channel like this and managing multiple channels and being creative in editing, yes, I would absolutely love that, which is why I'm willing to do the work that I'm doing for you guys on this channel for virtually no money at all. I get a little bit of money through YouTube, but not much. I would like that to grow, of course I would. But I am truly passionate about personal finance. I'm passionate about video, editing, ASMR. So yeah, these are things I would do for free. So you have to ask yourself if you like or love. So if you like your job and you get to a point where you have enough money, which is actually segueing into number 2, then maybe you should quit when the time is right. If you love your job, it might not be time to retire. A few years ago, I was going to retire. I'm glad I hung on because I wasn't quite ready. You know, even though I was not 100% in love with my job, I just felt like it wasn't the right time. Then I'm 100%, absolutely 100% sure that this is the right time. So that is number 1. Number 2, do you know how to identify when enough is enough? And I guess what I mean by that is from a financial standpoint. Have you heard of that phrase, the 1 more year syndrome? That's what I was thinking I was kind of falling into. I was like, Evan, just go 1 more year. Evan, just go 1 more year. You can do it. 1 more year. And that kept me going over the past 2 or 3 years. And that's when I had probably enough to retire in terms of investments. But even though I'm not at the point where I am Fat Fire, do you guys remember? I talked about that. We have Fat Fire. FIRE stands for Financially Independent Retire Early, if you didn't know that. And Fat Fire is a term that people use in the community that says, I've got like millions of dollars. Not only can I pay my essentials, have a little bit of fun, but I can have a lot of fun. I could take expensive vacations, I can buy boats, I can buy extra cars, I can buy a bigger house. It's borderline rich, not just wealthy. Could I have worked another 10 years and gotten there? Absolutely, I could have. My employer was not saying that I should retire, right? I could have gone another 10 years to age 60. Well, let's say 67, so 59, 60, 45, like another 8 years, maybe 9 years. Just think how wealthy I would have been in 9 or 10 years. But I stopped and I said, Evan, enough is enough. You don't want to waste 10 years just to have more money. For what? I'm not incredibly materialistic, and so I knew when enough was enough. I did not want Fat Fire. I wanted Lean Fire. Lean Fire means that you have enough to pay your essentials and a little bit more. And as you guys know, if I continue to use my short-term reserves for these first several years, that's going to allow my other investments to grow even more. That 1.4 could grow to $2 million in about 6 years. Now, I'll probably do a blended approach where I'll take a little bit of my short-term reserves, which, by the way, I got that number to $157,000. I'll share that with you coming up in early January when I backtrack over 2024. So I could take a little bit of short-term reserves and a little bit of the gains in the market, if there are gains in that year, and probably still get to $2 million. So one thing people tend to forget is that when you stop working, your money continues to grow. And with the inclusion of income from Social Security in just 3 years, which will be to the tune of about $20,000 per year, that would pay my expenses. Again, I'll share with you my budget on Friday, but it will pay my first probably more as long as inflation doesn't continue to go up, which it probably will, but I'll offset it. That Social Security, I have positioned myself, as you guys know, that Social Security will pay for the majority of my expenses. Now that, I think, is a seriously good deal to say to yourself, I think I probably have enough to retire. Not just on the engine that I built, but with the fact that the expenses are low, as I've shared with you, and that you also have then Social Security to offset that equation as well, if that makes sense. So the second question to ask yourself to know if you're ready to retire again is, how do you know and how do you identify when enough is enough? And finally, the third question on how you know when you should retire. And 3 questions to ask yourself is, do you feel like there are other areas of your life that may be suffering? In other words, if you had positive answers to number 1 and 2, and then you get to number 3 and you say to yourself, are there other things I want to be doing? Do I want to be more creative? Do I want to spend more time with friends? Do I want to spend more time with family? Do I want to get back into being a triathlete? Which is something I want to do. I want to swim, I want to bike, I want to run. I want to feel as good as I did when I was 38 years old. I will never forget how I felt when I was 38 years old. I was working, but you know, when you're younger, even though you're working, you can bounce back quickly. Like, I would go on business trips and come home and be like, wow, it feels like I never left. The older you get, it's 20 years later for me now, it's harder to bounce back. But I know that if I don't have the 8 or 10 hours per day that I'm working, that I'm concentrated on clients, that I'm filtering questions from them, that I'm trying to problem solve, that I'm, working for corporate America, I just can't feel like I'm balanced anymore like I did when I was younger. And so I said to myself, you've got number 1. I like my job, I don't love it. I've got number 2, I have enough. But number 3, in a very small way, I feel like I'm suffering, that I'm not feeling as feng shui as I can feel. I remember when I would do a really great day of exercise, it gave me such an adrenaline rush. The endorphins would be released, and then my body would respond, and I just felt amazing. Now, I don't want to lose the intellectual side either. I still want to read books and do stuff, right? But over the past 7 years, I've really let that part of myself go. Even though I still walk, I still do things, as you guys know. It's just not, or has not been, a priority. And I want it to be my number 1 priority. And as we get older, I think that is very important, so that we have time for friends, so that we have time for our families. There's nothing greater than feeling in control of your physique, your emotions, and your spirituality. And so, number 3 then if you feel like you're suffering, and I feel like I am, albeit a very small level, but it's something I identify with, I absolutely knew that it was 100% the time to retire. So with that, everybody, I think I'm going to go ahead and close out this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it relaxing. And if you did, give me a thumbs up. Consider subscribing.